All right, hey everyone, this is Rudy. Hey, I just finished reading Rex Russell Dean's 16-page letter about the Wikipedia article that was written up about the Freeman, Montana that occurred in the mid-1990s. So I thought, well, in order to make that reading more meaningful and relevant, it's important that I read the actual Wikipedia article in case they change it or take it down. So I'm going to go ahead and read the Wikipedia article and make it the introduction, and then you're going to hear me talk as if I'm doing a new introduction reading his 16-page letter. But actually I want the Wikipedia article to be first. It's not all that long, and it will make when I read how he exposes Wikipedia for the lies and the slander that they are, you can actually hear it right now. All right, so I've got up Wikipedia. It's December the 10th, the year 2016. This is at wikipedia.org/wiki/Montana_Freeman. Montana Freeman. The Montana Freemen were an anti-government Christian patriot movement group based outside the town of Jordan, Montana. The members of the group referred to their land as Justice Township, Justus, and had declared themselves no longer under the authority of any outside government. They became the center of public attention in 1996 when they engaged in a prolonged armed standoff with agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Contents: number 1, philosophy; number 2, liens; number 3, bank fraud; number 4, standoff; number 5, aftermath; number 6, members of the Montana Freemen and their sentences; number 7, see also; number 8, references; number 9, external links. Philosophy. The Montana Freemen espoused belief in the doctrine of individual sovereignty and rejected the authority of the federal government of the United States. Liens. Leader Leroy M. Schweitzer and the Freemen used inter alia Anderson on the Uniform Commercial Code and Banker's Handbook to draw notices of lien against public officials. The liens were then allegedly sold to generate equity to fund an effort to make a firm offer to pay off the national debt. The Freemen claimed that the liens conformed to the Uniform Commercial Code and that their township's court had an interest in a tort claim for damages incurred by the named public officials for violations of their oaths of office. They viewed support of the corporate credit system as an unconstitutional act which would incrementally, quote, deprive the people of their property until their posterity wakes up homeless, end quote, citation needed. A paraphrased quotation attributed to Thomas Jefferson. Next section is bank fraud. The Freemen were known to produce their very own realistic counterfeit checks and money orders, sometimes ordering items and deliberately overpaying so they could demand refunds. The president of one bank reported that over an 18-month period, his bank received 2 to 5 complaints a week about Freeman checks. In 1995, members wrote a fraudulent check to try to purchase a $1.4 million worth of firearms, ammunition, and bulletproof vest. Standoff. Section Standoff. In late 1994, foreclosure proceedings were initiated against the farm that contained Justice Township. The Freemen refused to be evicted from the land. They had also conducted their own mock trials of numerous public officials and issued their own writ of execution against a federal judge. The FBI investigated the group and initiated a sting operation aimed at one of the Freemen's financial programs, which led to the arrest of 2 members of the group in March 1996. The FBI also had warrants for 8 other persons suspected to be in the farm, but before they were able to arrest them, an armed confrontation developed, and the FBI withdrew to a safe distance to avoid violence. The similar 1993 standoff in Waco, Texas, involving the Branch Davidians, as well as the 1992 incident between the Weaver family and the FBI at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, were still fresh in the public mind, and the FBI was extremely cautious and wanted to prevent a recurrence of those violent events. After 81 days of negotiations, the Freeman surrendered to authorities on June the 14th, 1996. Section Aftermath. Leroy Schweitzer was convicted of conspiracy, bank fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, false claims to the IRS, interstate transportation of stolen property, threats against public officials, armed robbery of television news crew, and firearms violations. He received a 22-year sentence for 25 convictions in a South Carolina federal prison, but was moved to the Administrative Maximum ADX facility at Florence Federal Correctional Complex in Florence, Colorado. In 2006, after Irvin Hurlbert and Donald Little, who identified themselves as Montana Marshals, attempted to free Schweitzer from the prison. He died aged 73 in the ADX on September the 20th, 2011. Scott Roeder, convicted for the 2009 murder of George Tiller, was reportedly involved with the Freeman. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next section. Members of the Montana Freeman and their sentences. Leroy M. Schweitzer, 22 years, died in federal prison on 20th of September 2011 of natural causes at age 73 years. Emmett Clark pled guilty. Time served plus 3 years under supervision. Richard Clark, 12 years. James Hance, 5 years, 7 months. Levon T. Hansen pled guilty with plea bargain, 1 year, 1 day. Dana Dudley Landers pled guilty, 1 year, 9 months with credit for 2 years and 3 months already served. Russell Dean Landers, 11 years, 3 months, and see below. Daniel E. Peterson, 15 years, and see below. On 7th of April 2008, Russell Dean Landers had his sentence extended by 15 years for attempting to extort his release from prison. He and 2 other inmates at the federal prison in El Reno, Oklahoma, had demanded millions of dollars from officials for the use of their names, which they claimed were copyrighted. They were found guilty of conspiring to impede the duties of federal prison officials and extortion in their efforts to gain release from prison by making financial demands on prison staff and attempting to seize their property. On 6th of April 2010, Daniel E. Peterson was sentenced to additional time for filing bogus liens from prison against 3 federal judges. One of the judges targeted was the judge who sentenced Peterson to prison originally. Peterson was sentenced in 1996 to 15 years. He was convicted on 19 of 20 counts, which included bank fraud and armed robbery. While serving his sentence in a federal prison in Minnesota, Peterson devised a scheme in which to retaliate against 3 judges in his case. Federal prosecutors, after investigating, found that Peterson invented a company that supposedly held assets that included a 100 trillion default judgment against the United States. He then sold shares of the phony company to fellow inmates and others. He claimed these shares were backed by redemption certificates to be redeemed when the judgment was collected. The judgment he referred to came from a self-created court after former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright declined to respond to his demands. He was demanding $100 trillion as well as $1 billion per day in interest for unlawfully confining him. Peterson followed up by filing liens against property owned by the 3 federal judges, as well as offering bounties for the arrest of the same judges. The purpose was to entice someone to bring the 3 judges to Minnesota in order to respond to his liens. A 2011 National Public Radio report claimed that some of the people associated with this case were imprisoned in a highly restrictive communication management unit. See also Militia of Montana, Posse Comitatus, and False Lien. And then there is a references section that you can go look at from Wikipedia. The external links section says the group profile at the Anti-Defamation League. At the Anti-Defamation League. All right. So I just read to you what is written on Wikipedia, what I also call WikiPedia. And I think it's full of lies. I really do. We know that they lied about Ken Hovind. The owners of Wikipedia are very biased against conservatives and Christians. And when you try to actually, you say, well, Wikipedia is written by people. Well, I tried to get in and make changes in the Ken Hovind Wikipedia article, and they won't let me. They constantly ban me. I made a video about that and put it on YouTube, where they made fraudulent claims about me. They claimed that I had several sock puppet accounts, and they banned me from making changes to Wikipedia. That was I was editing the article so that it would be accurate in the case of Ken Hovind. And so I know that Wikipedia does things like ban people who try to put truthful information up. I've done it. I've made YouTube videos about it, and you can go watch those YouTube videos. And so I don't believe what Wikipedia has written is accurate about the Freeman Montana standoff or any of these people. And I do believe what Rex Russell Dean Landers has written. And so I'm going to stop this audio recording. The next audio recording that I'll put back to back is me reading the 16-page document that I received today on December the 10th, 2016. Thank you for your time. And here's the new audio of me reading the letter when it came in today. Thank you. Okay, this is Rudy. It's December the 10th, the year 2016. This is a letter I received today from Rex Russell Dean Landers. He was part of the Montana Freeman standoff in the mid-1990s. I believe he's been in prison for 21 years. He has 24 years to go. His release date is not until December the 2nd, 2040. I sent him a copy of the Wikipedia. I also refer to that as WikiPedia, because we saw what they did to Ken Hovind, how WikiPedia slandered and lied about Ken Hovind. And so I don't believe everything on Wikipedia. And I printed it out and I sent a copy to Rex Russell Dean Landers. And I said, what do you think about this? Is there any corrections or additions, or, what do you have to say? He replied back with this letter. It's 16 pages. And I'm going to read it to you now. Let me say that the manila envelope it came in, which is 9 by 12, the stamps aren't postmarked. I find that to be like common. That's happened with Ed Brown. It's happened with a guy by the name of Robert David Neal. I don't know what it is about stamps and these prisons, but when it arrives at my house, it's more often than not, the stamps are not postmarked. If I try to reuse the stamps, which is like typically what most people think about doing, that is a case of fraud. It's almost like they're trying to tempt me to reuse the stamps, but I'm not going to get thrown in prison for trying to reuse a stamp. But I just find it odd that they don't postmark the stamps. In any event, let's get right to it. 16 pages. If you're interested in the Freeman Montana standoff, then let's hear from Rex Russell Dean Landers, who was there, rather than read Wikipedia that we know is biased against conservatives, biased against Christians. There's no doubt in my mind that's the case. All right. At the bottom of every single page, it says, Notice, Declaration, Truth, all rights reserved. He also puts the page number. On the first page, it says page 1 of 16. And then he says Rex Russell Dean, Declarant. I'm suspecting he might write a book out of this, and so he wants to reserve the rights to his story. All right. By the light, Proverbs 4, and sometimes I might have a hard time reading every single letter, so I'm going to guess it's Proverbs 4:18 or 4:13. It could be Proverbs 4:11. The 4th of December, 2016. So he wrote it on the 4th. It took 6 days to get to me, so he wrote it on a Sunday. Dear Rudy and Aaron et al., Greetings in the name of Jesus, the Christ, forever. So be it. Here I share under penalty of bearing false witness, under the law of Creator and ruler of the universe, Jesus the Christ, and thus, as a man of age of majority attest, state, and declare, no people can enjoy liberty so long as dictatorial despotism goes about with the force of arbitrarily imprisoning, robbing, murdering the people for unrighteousness, enrichment, profit, gain, and the protection of tyrants. Rex Russell Dean Landers, copyright TM. 4th of December 2016. County for Landers of Creation, House of Landers, SS Declaration to wit. Notice. For one is notice for all. Number 1. Rex Russell Dean, herein Rex Russell Dean, principal, sui juris, has possession of a print out titled Montana Freeman, as indicated is posted on wikipedia.org. Rex Russell Dean is a Christian man, bound as St. Paul to the Word, John 1, 14. Our Lord Jesus Christ, the printout, our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, let me read that again. Rex Russell Dean, herein Rex Russell Dean, principal sui juris, has possession of a printout titled Montana Freeman, as indicated as is posted on wikipedia.org. Rex Russell Dean is a Christian man, bound as St. Paul to the Word, John 1, 14, our Lord Jesus the Christ. The printout, clear error, appears a lie. Thus, this declaration of truth for all to see, and number 2, the statement, the Montana Freemen were an anti-government Christian patriot movement group based outside of the town of Jordan, Montana, could not possibly be stated by anyone who knows. The good people who were visiting and living at the homesteads on the Clark ranches never identified themselves as Montana Freemen. No such movement, group, nor memberships originated with the people. Quote, anti-government, quote, undefined. Does not describe, quote, the people. Most, if not all, Christians, perhaps some of the most pro-government people on America, indeed anti-corruption, and certainly before God and men, know the difference. This declarant was interviewed November 1996 by a reporter for, quote, the Raleigh News and Observer, end quote, and it was published. Quote, the so-called Montana Freemen are not anti-government. In fact, maybe the most pro-government people, I think he's writing on America, but it could be in, the most pro-government people on America today, but are anti-corruption and do know the difference, end quote. My dear wife Dana and I made well-received appearances on Christian Broadcasting Network, CBN, from studios in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. Quote, the Voice of Freedom, end quote, hosted by Reverend James Nichols. Over 6 weeks programming, we produced and presented seminars, quote, America First, Basics of Law, end quote, for diverse, enthused audiences. Appeared and spoke at multiple meetings hosted by numerous people, diverse audiences all across America, 1992 through 1995, appeared on page 3, appeared on numerous radio talk programs, additional TV programs, as well as providing successful assistance for many people all across America, with honor, settling challenges with lenders, revenue challenges, contract conflicts, child support and custody challenges, etc., extending charity for others, all in hopes of restoring righteousness for all, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. By and through honor for the Word of God, for help for others, we sought out instruction, and as best we could, shared with men and women gathered at Clark Ranches 25 miles northwest of Jordan, Montana. We were neither members of any movement nor group, nor did we see any such evidence. Only media and such as sought for unlawfully silencing the people repeated such untruths for audiences who would not know. We were anticipating being joined by others within a week or 10 days, 25 March 1996, for our next leg of our plans for sharing America First in California and Oregon, when we were assaulted, terrorized, and ultimately robbed and victimized, slandered and falsely imprisoned for sharing the word and the truth for honorable purposes. Page 4. Number 3. Local men had, of necessity, in strict observance with the Constitution for Montana, the laws for Montana, established justice, Justus, Colossians 4:11, township, for due self-governing purposes, due honor by government of Montana, one of the Union States of America, in honor for the Constitution for the United States of America, treaties and laws in honor thereof. The Montana people on the Clark Ranches northwest of Jordan, Montana, were in no way outside of the law, and were in fact due the protections of the law in every sense. The self-styled foreign federal actors with no authority, doctrine of creation, a creation for the District of Columbia, only by the people, for strictly limited services only. See the Lufkin case, 9:14-CV-138, EDTX Lufkin Division, Lufkin, as well as the array of documentation and precedents that clearly affirms who the United States of America are and what they are not. And number 4, the so-called Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, with no authority over the people, no warrant nor authority of any kind on Indiana country, Garfield County, Montana State, where they have, page 5, absolutely no authority over non-Indians. Actors Mike Madsen later identified himself as Timothy Healy, and an unidentified accomplice, both also known as no way of knowing their full names has been revealed for me to this day, began their trespass on the people by pretending an interest in classes and assistance shared by Leroy Michael Schweitzer, Dale Martin Jacoby, Daniel E. Peterson, Rodney Owen Skirtle, etc., then posing as electronic communications contractors for an enterprise based in Atlanta, Georgia. They contracted for installing a common two-way communication system on the Ralph Clark Ranch, so the people living there could enjoy communications locally and up to 150 miles from the ranches. On 25th of March 1996, after staying overnight on the ranch, Madsen, Healy, and his companion joined Leroy Michael and Daniel E. for installation of the two-way system on the highest point in the area. At the site, posing as laborers, men had staged layout of materials for the installation, then armed with firearms and tasers assaulted and kidnapped Leroy Michael and Daniel E., leaving the, page 6, Construction material behind. The large blue tarp was laid out with framing lumber holding it down on the south-facing side of the hill so it could easily be seen at a distance from the air. Clearly the intent was for establishing a command post in the anticipation of the people being surrounded in one or more of the ranch homesteads. We saw this on first inspection, first blush. The materials were gathered and stored in a nearby storage building. No gathering at any one of the homesteads was done, as we saw that trap from the onset. Demands for explanations for the assault, for warrant, for delegation of authority, for the assault on everyone there, and the taking of Leroy Michael and Daniel E. were unanswered. We were forced to live in fear of further violence, assaults, and trespass by people who have a history of violence and murder, Waco, Ruby Ridge, etc. Number 5, we the people are in fact the source of sovereign, page 7, sovereign authority. The legitimate governments, local, state, and United States are organized servants for the people who created them and sustained them for good and limited purposes. We the people are in fact the source of sovereign will under the only true sovereign creator and ruler of the universe. Almighty God, the Father, and Jesus the Christ. There is no legitimate authority with dictatorial premise over the people. Doctrine of creation. The created does not rule over the creator. We the people, creators of the Union, under God, United States of America, states, counties, cities, and towns. Number 6, liens. Leroy Michael Schweitzer, not ever leader of the Freeman, see above. This statement is woefully inaccurate, though in truth he was an honorable and well-informed Christian man. In matters of contract, all contractual obligations are in fact a lien on the estate, worth, and credit of the parties bound for specific performance by the terms and conditions of contract or simple binding consent agreement. All contemporary contracts, agreements are contemplated within the statutes, rules, regulations, corporately adopted under the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC. Anderson on the Uniform Commercial Code is a respected published resource for guidelines for contracting within the boundaries of the statutes at large and ordinary course. Page 8. The Bank Officer's Handbook, 1991 edition, as possed, P-O-S-S-E-D, as possed by Leroy Michael Schweitzer, is a guidebook for bank managers or others concerned with proper administration of bank policies and procedures for operating within the law. And of course, anyone who enters the duties of public service is bound by and must swear an oath and contracts for conducting their employment within the Constitution, laws of the Union, United States of America, 1789 through 1791. States and municipalities. James E. Sequeira, S-E-C-E-R-A, Assistant U.S. Attorney, and Sherry Skeel, S-C-K-I-E-L, maybe, Matusi, U.S. Attorney for District of Montana, 1996, had in their possession Leroy Michael Schweitzer's copy of the Bank Officer's Handbook, which proves that Leroy Michael Schweitzer nor anyone else violated any laws as he settled accounts for over 4,000 obligations over the period of 5 years. They withheld the book from all defense attorneys, the alleged grand jury, the court record, and petite P-E-T-I-T, petite trial juries, etc. That evidence, the key for precluding any so-called charges, any standoff, any arrest, any convictions, any sentences, any taking of property and imprisonment, any actions of any kind. One who willfully breaches the oath contracts is chargeable by prosecution of claims through administrative law, independent action, judicial review, all of which provide for remedy and relief due for protection of all rights, titles, and interest vested in the people, asserted by and through due process of law, public. Page 9. Public officers and employees, as is anyone else, are subject for claims when they violate the rights of the people. A conclusion affirming a claim against a violator is enforceable for collections for settlement of the contractual obligation, and is in fact a lien on the estate, worth, and credit of the obligated violator until full settlement is completed. The Wikipedia writings under liens not explained above are nonsense as script of a tort claim, quote, corporate credit system, and out of context nonsense alleging paraphrases used based upon quoting Thomas Jefferson. Number 7, checks. There are no checks, none. There is no such thing as a counterfeit check. Rex Russell Dean never saw a money order from anyone from the Clark ranches. Not that there would be anything illegal or unlawful about anyone producing a money order. References made of overpaying so they could demand refunds. More nonsense. That error may have emerged with related the comptroller warrants, drafts, made out of the lien holder claimant such as a mortgage holder, IRS, or state revenue agency, child support collections authority, etc., as Leroy Michael issued the comptroller warrant payable for the man or woman who owed an obligation and the party calling for settlement per the recommend at Revelation chapter 18 verse 6. Double unto her, double according to her works. It had nothing to do with demand for refund. There was no reason for nor any such demands being made. Quote, comptroller warrants are in fact not checks. Page 10. Let me just pause here and say when I read Wikipedia, and if you go read Wikipedia, and I probably need to save a copy of it before they change it, but they made the case that the Freeman Montana were writing checks and had their own currency, and they would try to cash these checks outside of their township and try to demand refunds in American money to try to make it look like they were scamming everybody. That's the story that Wikipedia tells. But what Russell Dean Landers just said is that's absolutely not true, right? Which doesn't surprise me that Wikipedia is full of lies. All right, going on with his writing. Comptroller warrants are in fact not checks. Page 10. They are simply a draft and assignment. Checks are in fact exclusively bank instruments, a variety of draft, a creature of banking. Number 8. Rex Russell Dean has seen no evidence of any $1.4 million order for firearms, ammunition, and bulletproof vest, 1995, nor otherwise, and finds it near certain no such evidence exists. There was no interest in such among the people at the Clark Ranchers. Such appears to be the type of propaganda nonsense proliferated by those who spread lies for justifying the destruction, robbery, and false imprisonment of others, who they do not want exposing the corruption. More of the entire array of lies. There was no one at the Clark ranches who would have any need for such an order. That is stupid. That is a stupid assertion. Number 9. Standoff. Nicholas C. Murnian, given $25,000 by Ted Kennedy, United States Senator, for aiding and abetting in the assaults, kidnapping and robbery, arrest, false prosecutions, and imprisonment suffered by all of the people on the Clark ranches in 1996, was the Garfield County Attorney, on the Garfield County Bank Board, on the local telephone company board, on the board for FHA, Farm and Home Administration, and operating his own law practice. Strong evidence he was in the cocaine business. An insider at FHA, Murnian, had forged documents for an FHA loan in excess of $140,000 using the Ralph Clark Ranch for collateral. Ralph never received the proceeds. When the payments were not made, FHA proceeded for foreclosure on the Clark property. Thus, foreclosure, a pretense for attack on Clark ranches. Page 11. The media ranted for weeks, quote, hold up on 900-acre foreclosed ranch, end quote, more lies. During the FBI terrorist assault on the innocent people of the Clark ranches, myself and another traveled on horseback as far as 10 miles from the center of the homesteads, on alert for signs for invasion and intelligence as to what dangers we were facing. The so-called FBI would have no part in a foreclosure process, even if there was a foreclosure in progress. Number 10. On 25th of March 1996, day of the kidnap of Leroy and Daniel and assault on all of us, the media was told and widely broadcast that Leroy and Daniel had been arrested at the Brusset post office, an effort for implying federal authority. Leroy Daniel, nor most others, would never go to the Brusset post office. The lie exposed the retraction, little or none. Leroy and Daniel had been kidnapped by a rogue bunch of outlaws acting under color of legalism, victims of human trafficking, the so-called foreclosure scheme, a lie made for front pages and TV, excusing terrorizing nearly 30 innocent men, women, and children on the ranches, and numerous friends and families all across America who learned their loved ones were being assaulted. Number 11. Rex Russell Dean personally knew Randy and Vicki Weaver and their children during the time they lived in Cedar Falls, Iowa, before they moved to Ruby Ridge, Idaho, as Iowa was giving them as hard a time for homeschooling their children. I met them at Sambo's Rest, page 12, Sambo's Restaurant, where they and friends frequently gathered for a Bible study, conversation, and prayer. I often had a few minutes to join them before or after meeting with business associates or clients. This raised special terror in our hearts on the Clark ranches, for we knew of murder of Samuel and Vicki at Ruby Ridge, as well as the murder of women and children at Waco. Number 12. Our surrender, 13th of June 1996, not 14th, came as 24 hours earlier we were threatened with lethal military-style assault. We had intelligence reports of 25 armed personnel carriers on the ready at the Jordan Airport and the Air National Guard on ready alert at the Glasgow, Montana base. Vietnam era Henry-style helicopters, Vietnam era heavy-style helicopters had been buzzing us the 12th. Okay. 13. On 12th of June 1996, Rex Russell Dean sent our 16-year-old daughter Ashley off the ranch on word she would be taken to her sister and brother-in-law at Brownsville, Minnesota. The FBI was not cautious. They were calculated. During their 81-day assault on us, they tried no less than 3 times for incitement of violence. They sent up to 50 friends and relatives in for securing on an ongoing insight about us, and for establishing the public relations smokescreen. We remained belligerent, and they had no choice short of violent, murderous overthrow of our people. We saw the writing on the wall, and for lack of options, surrendered on 13 June. We were kidnapped, no warrant, no cause, bound and hauled away as if we were criminals by thugs who had no legitimate cause against any of us. Force, not law, the rule of the day. We could not risk assassination. Page 13. Number 14. Reports indicate Leroy Michael Schweitzer, a man not inclined for taking medication, had 17 drugs, a toxic soup in his body, when his family had an autopsy completed following his death, 20th of September 2011, while he continued being held in solitary confinement. ADX Maximum Security Federal Prison, Florence, Colorado. Leroy was being persecuted as he was held responsible for our lawful eminent domain seizure of allodial title of Garfield County, Montana, as Nichols C. Murnian demanded the prison administrators stop Leroy from completing any further procedures. The eminent domain allodial title claim firm today. Number 15. The Wikipedia text seeks to lead readers to believe Scott Roeder, convicted for murder of an abortion doctor, George Tiller, had something in common with us. Nothing could be further from the truth. Number 16. Rex Russell Dean, who at 45 had never had more than 3 5-mile per hour over the speed limit in town, has been framed with 57-year prison sentences for alleged offenses for events that never happened. Matters Dana, my wife, nor I have any knowledge of. May 25th, 2007. I was discharged the second time. I was discharged in time, I can't read that word. Alarmed, the Federals went into action in attempt for another frame-up in Oklahoma. That was discharged at the outset. The bogus media smear extortion, all lies. Not even any such, page 14, not even any such charge was ever put forth. They alleged, quote, threats by mail, quote, and even the alleged victim, Thomas Charles Peterson, testified he did not feel threatened 2 times in his trial testimony. It was all perjury, no truth to any wrongdoing. Nonetheless, all was settled and discharged. Number 17. Related Daniel E. Peterson, there can be no such thing as a bogus lien. Either one has a lien or one does not. That assault on Daniel, and assault on every American's protected right for redress of grievances and for compelling specific performance due for violation of oath contracts by the officers/employees in government. Violations create obligations, and impeding Daniel E. Peterson's right for recourse against a violator is an assault on the right of recourse due every man, woman, and child, without which protection of rights is banished, and tyranny and corruption reign free. And number 18. When Rex Russell Dean returned to USP McCreary via U.S. Marshals the last week of May 2008 from the Oklahoma fiasco, as he had discharged all outstanding obligations, the staff at USP McCreary did not know what Rex Russell Dean was doing there. He was stashed in isolation when an employee stated, "Landers, I don't know what you are doing here. You're," page 15, "not designated here. You're not designated anywhere. You're not supposed to be in prison." To which I demanded, "You are supposed to set me free." He retorted, "You're going to the hole." I argued, "Don't I have to be designated to go to the hole?" He yelled, "I don't want to hear it. You're going to the hole." I was not allowed to call family nor anyone for over 2 months. Finally, last week of July 2008, with no paperwork, BOP employees took me and my property via BOP van to FCI at Terre Haute, Indiana, where secreted inside the fence, in a building that had formerly been death row before it was condemned. I was sequestered in a confinement called Communications Management Unit. My. An unregulated sequester ran by an illegal/unlawful private contract, using BOP employees hidden away with 35 to 50 others, many Islamic terrorists, ever since. The discharge final Rex Russell Dean is not to be in prison. Now, in the 10th year since discharged, cut off from my wife Dana and numerous others every effort for silencing the truth and exposure of corruption. And 19. References appears to be a who's who in media hate speech, liars club, many of whom were in on the scripting Montana Freeman since mid-1990s. Those complicit in the destruction of the lives of several loyal, true Americans, Christians who love God, love their country, and have eyes to see, ears to hear, and truthfully have put their lives on the line for God and country, the people. Page 16. Number 20. It is time for exposure of the corruption and those who smear, frame, and destroy others who stand up for truth. Bio 21. Rex Russell Dean Landers. First-hand account of what was really going on in Garfield County, Montana, 1996, and some of what has transpired to date. 67 years young. Founder and instructor with wife Dana Dudley Landers of seminars America First Basics of Law, 1993. Speaking out for saving family farms, ranches, and people's livelihood. Spoke all across America, 1993 through 1995. Grew up and educated in Iowa. Over a decade of business in Iowa. Family grown, have 13 grandchildren, their privacy of necessity. Provided legal services and charitable assistance. Law office, 4 Oaks, North Carolina. Wife Dana and I persecuted last 20 years since assault at Clark Ranches in Garfield County, Montana, 25th March 1996. And much, much more. All rights reserved. Date December the 4th, 2016, Sunday. In Jesus' Service Always, by Rex Russell Dean Landers, Principal, Surrey Juris. Declare out. Wow. You know, a lot of what he writes is very, very similar. It's been going on for a long time. This was back in the mid-1990s. They scripted a story and they made up a lie. And WikiPedia is helping propagate the lie. Please write a letter, if you would, to Rex Russell Dean Landers. I'll put his information on the screen or in the description bar. And please encourage this man. He's already been 21 years in prison, and he's going to be in prison another 24 years if the evil people have their way. But we do serve a mighty living God, and please continue to keep Rex Russell Dean Landers in your prayers and write him an encouraging letter. Thank you for your time.